They could have picked any venue for the press conference. A small science center, a digital stream, even a standard orbital announcement grid would have sufficed. But no, the Galactic Reconnaissance Authority insisted on holding their announcement in the grand atrium of Archean Hall, a place typically reserved for peace treaties and interspecies armistices. Because, clearly, nothing says we're just scientists doing our job like booking a location built to stop galactic wars. At the center of it all stood Commander Velix Tranor, his chest puffed out with pride, his ceremonial uniform gleaming beneath the hall's luminescent arches. Adorning his uniform were 18 medals, each representing missions he'd never personally participated in, but had somehow taken credit for. Behind him, shimmering holodisplays danced with projections of deep space scans, planetary maps, and chemical breakdowns. Representatives from across the tri-spiral systems leaned forward. Tentacles, antennae, pseudopods, all poised over recording devices. "Esteemed colleagues," Velix began, his voice tuned to a deep theatrical baritone. "Today, the Grey marks a galactic milestone. Our ship, the Celestial Vulture, has charted a world so profoundly hostile, so fundamentally incompatible with life, that it challenges our very understanding of survivable environments." He paused, letting the tension build. The hollow behind him rotated to reveal a vibrant blue and green planet, slowly spinning against a canvas of stars. "Designation GRX 991, he announced, or, as our science team has labeled it, the Death Cradle. Gasps echoed across the hall. Even the stone-faced delegates from the Archon clans blinked their dual eye stalks in surprise. Velix's jaw twitched into a smug grin. "It possesses an oxygen concentration of 21%. Gravity? A staggering 1 g. Temperatures range from 230 to 320 Kelvin. Atmospheric volatility is, let's say, enthusiastic." The expedition's lead biologist, her chitin glistening with irritation, stepped forward. "And the hydrosphere," she added, "is over 70% dihydrogen monoxide, a solvent so destructive it can dissolve native minerals, metals, even some forms of reinforced plasteel." She did not mention her species evolved in a place where the most aggressive fluid was similar to chamomile tea. But Velix wasn't done. "The biosphere," he said, voice lowered theatrically, "contains over 9 million catalogued species, many in constant biochemical warfare with each other. The microbial load alone would liquefy any unshielded life form within minutes." The hollow displayed writhing red bacterial models. Several journalists recoiled. One from the Talsheen Collective dropped their recorder and left the room. "And the fauna," Velix added, voice grim, "beasts that consume each other while still alive, flora that exhale volatile oxygen as part of their respiration. It is, undeniably, the most dangerous place we've ever encountered." A beat of silence followed. "Yet," he said, voice rising, "we observed, we mapped, and we endured. For 18 cycles the Celestial Vulture held position." He did not elaborate that the ship remained at a safe orbit, never breaching the upper atmosphere, and that all exploration was carried out via drones and remote probes. That was a technicality best left buried in data logs. Questions erupted from the floor. Velix allowed himself to bask in the moment. Cameras flashed, hollows blinked, reporters demanded clarifications. And not one of them, not a single soul, could guess just how completely their understanding of this so-called death cradle was about to unravel. Officially, the Galactic Reconnaissance Authority labeled it Phase 2 preparations. Unofficially, everyone in the Grey knew it for what it truly was: bureaucratic padding. The kind of slow, methodical, paper-heavy grind that justifies funding the size of a minor planetary economy. Commander Velix Tranor had secured a budget that could bankroll an entire colony fleet. And by the void, he was going to use every last credit. A sprawling complex was constructed on Nexus Spire, a glimmering orbital station that orbited the moons of Elion Prime. Inside this fortified installation, scientists and engineers drawn from every major system toiled around the clock to create the most advanced survival equipment ever conceptualized. Their crowning achievement, the Perseus-class dreadsuits. Each suit cost more than the combined GDP of 3 frontier systems. They were absurdly overbuilt, featuring 12 redundant life support systems, solar flare-grade radiation shielding, and nanoweave armor so dense it could deflect comet shrapnel. They resembled bloated metallic beetles, waddling with bulk but virtually indestructible. Chief Engineer Brone Vex, a wiry Tharn with a cybernetic jaw, affectionately patted one of the prototypes. "She can filter out anything from corrosive gases to pure elemental chlorine. You could breathe in volcanic ash and smell roses." Meanwhile, betting pools across the Federation had exploded. The Jarnock Syndicate, famous for gambling on volcanic eruptions and diplomatic scandals, was now taking odds on whether the GRX 991 mission would result in a full loss, partial crew digestion, or an accidental black hole event. 10-1 says they don't even hit the troposphere, cackled a Syndicate bookie adjusting his ocular implants. My personal favorite, 25-1 odds say a stray microbe melts the landing gear. Insurance providers, predictably, had gone into collective meltdown. Galactic Life Assurance convened 17 emergency assemblies. Their final risk package had so many exclusions, the only actual benefit was a handwritten apology to the crew's families. Each expedition member was required to sign 348 legal disclaimers, each more terrifying than the last. One form politely acknowledged that if their bodies were consumed, mutated, or assimilated by planetary life, their families would receive commemorative statuettes. Psychological screenings grew increasingly strange. How do you respond to epidermal liquefaction? On a scale of 1 to 10, how emotionally prepared are you to discover intelligent mold colonizing your lungs? Dr. Celari spent 3 weeks in an isolation tank, developing containment units rated to withstand temperatures from absolute zero to the surface of a sun. When an assistant questioned whether such durability was necessary for collecting a fern, Celari responded with a 45-minute tirade about aggressive plant-based acid secretions. Through it all, Commander Velix Tranor stood for countless publicity hollows, one boot propped dramatically on a synthetic rock, gazing into the middle distance. Marketing campaigns were already rolling out commemorative nutrient paste packs labeled "I survived GRX 991, the Death Cradle," complete with action figures featuring removable visors and gravity-adjustable boots. No one, not even the astrogation interns, noticed that GRX 991's data packets were starting to display inconsistencies. Regular pulses of electromagnetic radiation, stable climate trends over centuries, surface patterns that seemed too geometric. But no one wanted to slow down the launch. Not when award season was around the corner. If confidence could deflect danger, the expedition would have been invincible. Unfortunately, what they had in abundance was not confidence, but bureaucracy, promotional material, and a delusional sense of preparedness. Launch day for the GRX 991 mission was set with pomp, typically reserved for coronations or galactic peace treaties. The entire crew of the Celestial Vulture gathered in full gear inside the Nexus Spire hangar, bathed in the glow of 1,000 media drones. Commander Velix Tranor, now an interstellar celebrity, strode with robotic precision into the launch bay, his Perseus-class dreadsuit polished so thoroughly it reflected the faces of dozens of adoring fans. He held up a gloved hand. "Today, we begin a journey not for conquest, but for knowledge. A quest into the galaxy's most dangerous cradle of life, and we will emerge, not as victims, but as victors." The crowd erupted in applause. Somewhere behind him, Chief Engineer Brone Vex quietly muttered, "Let's just hope the landing gear doesn't buckle." The Celestial Vulture launched from the hangar amid a triumphant fanfare composed by a Glan symphony, renowned for their ability to create music that induced both inspiration and mild anxiety. The ship itself looked less like an explorer's craft and more like a heavily armed diplomatic fortress. bristling with sensors, re-entry shields, atmospheric particle neutralizers, and 32 escape pods, the vessel exuded extreme overcompensation. Inside the bridge, each crew member activated their personal hazard isolation fields. The ship's systems ran a countdown in 6 different galactic languages, including an ancient binary dialect only used by AI philosophers. "Begin descent sequence," Velix ordered, voice crackling through the thick layers of filtration in his suit. As they entered GRX 991's upper atmosphere, alarms should have wailed. Instead, the ship's sensors issued confused beeps. "Commander," said Litra Hallex, the ship's navigation officer, "we're picking up geometric formations on the surface, repeating patterns, like..." Velix's expression darkened beneath his triple-reinforced visor. "Check the diagnostics. It's an anomaly. GRX 991 is uninhabitable." "We've checked 3 times," replied Litra. "We're also detecting stable electromagnetic emissions, frequencies used for communication." The bridge fell silent. On the view screen, clouds parted to reveal green hills, rivers, and the unmistakable glow of artificial lights. Settlements, structured farmland, infrastructure. Perhaps autonomous mining installations, Velix offered weakly. His hopes were dashed when the ship's comms crackled to life. A calm voice spoke, in precise galactic common. "Unidentified vessel, you are in restricted Terran airspace. Please identify yourself and state your purpose. Failure to comply will result in interception." The crew stared in disbelief. "That sounded friendly," muttered Dr. Celerier, bewildered. "We're not alone," Velix said finally. "Prepare for emergency diplomatic protocols." The celestial vulture landed at a location designated by the transmission, a flat paved expanse near what looked like a civilian administrative building. The exterior sensors confirmed a nightmare of environmental conditions. Gravity at a brutal 1.0 G, temperatures hovering at 294 Kelvin, and oxygen-rich air thick with microbial activity. Then the welcome party showed up. They were bipedal, unarmored, bare-skinned, wearing fabric. One of them was even chewing on what appeared to be a plant. "Welcome to Terra Nova Spaceport," the lead human said, waving casually. "You folks look a bit overdressed. Lose a bet?" Inside his suit, Commander Velix's jaw went slack. Commander Velix Tranor had prepared for many first contact scenarios. Hostile primitive tribes, advanced civilizations hidden behind planetary cloaks, even sentient clouds. But he had never prepared for a species that looked him directly in the visor and said, "Nice suits. You guys doing a documentary or something?" The human who'd greeted them was still chewing nonchalantly on a stick of celery, utterly unfazed by the towering presence of 7 aliens encased in billion-credit survival exosuits. "You're exposed?" Velix stammered through his external speaker. "Yeah, it's kind of the vibe," the man said with a shrug. "Weather's nice. Want to take those off? You look like portable microwaves." "We cannot," Velix replied stiffly. "Your environment is hostile. Lethally so." The human scratched his head. "Ha, guess someone forgot to tell the rest of us." Behind him, a child ran past, skidded on the concrete, scraped a knee, burst into tears, then, barely seconds later, brushed it off and returned to chasing a frisbee. The Dr. Celarier nearly fainted. "I'm observing dermal rupture," she whispered to her recorder. "Self-inflicted, rapid clotting, no antiseptic, and it resumed activity." "Terrifying," muttered Velix. The humans had arranged what they called a casual welcome reception. It involved open flames, exposed skin, and the combustion of animal tissue in a ritual they referred to as barbecue. You eat scorched biological matter?" asked Communications Officer Dreel, eyeing the sizzling grills with visible horror. "Yep, want some ribs." Dr. Celeriai analyzed the meat's surface with her handheld bioscanner. It contains known carcinogens, heavy fats, and trace metals. "Flavor, Jack," the man in charge explained helpfully. "We call it flavor." To the expedition crew, the scene was a waking nightmare. unprotected bipeds standing in open air, surrounded by fire and carnivorous rituals. And yet, not only surviving, but thriving, laughing, breathing without filters, eating plants and burnt flesh without molecular cleansing. Velix stiffened as a human offered him a beverage. "This is poison," he said, scanning the bottle. "Ethanol concentration at 5.8%. "Yup, we call it beer. You consume toxins for recreation." "Only socially," the human grinned. "Mostly." Somewhere behind the grill, a human waved and called out, "Hey, someone grab a selfie with the spacemen." Dr. Solarii was updating her will in real time. But nothing, not even the incinerated meats, fermented toxins, or fearless children, prepared them for what came next. A small, furry quadruped sauntered into the gathering. The moment it meowed, all 7 aliens activated their defensive shields. "Predator!" shouted Second Officer Tharnox, flinging himself behind a table. The humans stared. "That's Mittens," said a woman, scooping up the purring feline. "He's our cat." "It's vibrating," Velix whispered. "It's vibrating, and she's petting it." "He's just purring," Jack replied. "He likes you. You're holding a carnivorous life form with retractable claws and internal bone shredders." "He's also scared of vacuum cleaners," said the woman, stroking the beast's head. Mittens yawned, exposing his teeth. Dr. Solarii dropped her data. As if that weren't enough, a buzzing insect landed on her shoulder. The suit's bio-alarm screamed. "It carries enough venom to induce neural collapse," she screeched. "Oh, that's just a honeybee," a human said, brushing it off. "They make our sweeteners." "You farm venomous organisms for sugar." "They're endangered too," said Jack solemnly. "We love our bees." The alien crew stood motionless, stunned. Every biological threat they'd trained to avoid was casually embraced here. Fire, microbes, toxins, sharp-toothed predators. And somehow, these beings didn't just survive, they flourished. "This," Velix muttered under his breath, "is not a planet. It's a crucible, and they are forged in it." The barbecue continued as if interstellar diplomacy wasn't hanging on the edge of a meat skewer. Smoke curled lazily into the air. Humans lounged in lawn chairs, sipping toxin-laced beverages, and sizzling cuts of animal tissue filled the open-air plaza with rich, smoky aromas. To the humans, it was just a sunny afternoon. To the alien crew of the Celestial Vulture, it was a waking biohazard nightmare. Commander Velix Tranor stood rigid in his dreadsuit, sensors whirring as they catalogued the environment. Oxygen, too volatile. Gravity, too strong. Ambient noise, chaotic, and filled with unpredictable emotional inflections. Worst of all, the planetary surface was crawling with hyper-resilient bipedal apex predators that considered this place home. "I can't even tell what's more terrifying," muttered Communications Officer Drill, ducking as a frisbee whizzed past. "The fact they breathe this atmosphere, or that they're so cheerful about it." Dr. Solarii was documenting everything with meticulous horror. "This one," she whispered, pointing to a human casually eating a spicy sausage, "is ingesting thermogenic organic matter laced with capsicum alkaloids, voluntarily. And washing it down with carbonated ethanol," Drill added, scanning the contents of a bottle. "Their digestive tracts must be lined with obsidian." Meanwhile, a group of human teenagers had set up a game involving high-speed rubber projectiles and what appeared to be calculated bodily collisions. The aliens collectively recoiled when one player took a ball to the face and simply laughed it off. "He took cranial impact trauma and found it amusing," gasped Velix. "They metabolized pain into entertainment." As if to add insult to xenobiological logic, a human elder approached the group carrying what looked like a tray of chocolate-covered confections. "These are brownies," he announced with a smile. "Family recipe. Care for one?" Dr. Solarii scanned the treat. "This contains theobromine, sugar, saturated fats. This should not be edible." "It's delicious," the elder insisted. "They are playing nutritional roulette," Drill whispered. and winning. The science team retreated to a corner near the supply rover, holding an emergency meeting in hushed tones. The data didn't lie. GRX 991. Inhabitants were a walking contradiction to every known biological principle. They've domesticated predators, developed a taste for flame-grilled carcinogens, willingly consume fermented toxins, and appear immune to mild to moderate blunt force trauma, Solari listed off. Velix nodded grimly. And they laugh. Constantly. Chief Engineer Brunvex was the first to crack. This is a species that stares death in the face and calls it a barbecue. Commander, said Lytra Halix from the portable comms array, we've received several broadcast requests. Apparently local media outlets want to interview us. Absolutely not, Velix barked. We are in no condition to be interviewed. We are surrounded by cheerful super mutants wearing cloth armor. At that moment, a large balloon burst with a loud pop nearby, triggering a brief panic as all 7 aliens activated their personal shields. Children laughed. The aliens trembled. You hear that? Whispered Drill. They weaponized explosions into entertainment. Minutes later, a human mother calmly treated a child's bee sting with ice and a soothing tone. The child nodded, took a bite of corn on the cob, and resumed playing. They've ta'en venom, Solari said, voice hollow. And corn? Gods help us all. By sunset, the crew had retreated inside their sealed environmental dome, a self-contained habitat brought for emergencies. Their suits decontaminated, they slumped into seats that hissed with pressure adjustment. Outside the transparent dome, the humans waved goodnight. One of them held up a sign, "Thanks for visiting, come back soon." Velix didn't respond. He was busy staring at a photo he had taken during the reception. In it, a human was high-fiving a child while casually petting a venomous mammal and holding a bottle of ethanol. This planet, he muttered to himself, isn't just hostile, it's insane, and the inhabitants, they thrive in it. The Alien Research Dome, tucked behind the Montana Regional Spaceport's Visitor Center, had become the crew's last refuge. Every surface was sterilized, every breath filtered, every corner monitored by 12 redundant safety protocols. And yet, despite the dome's defenses, the real danger lurked outside, not in the form of gamma storms or hostile fauna, but in the bafflingly cheerful species who made this death world their playground. Commander Velix Tranor stared at the thick pane of transparent shielding that separated his team from the open air. Beyond it, a human child chased a butterfly, while a group of adults debated the flavor differences between grilled corn and baked potatoes. It's like they're immune to consequences, he muttered. Dr. Solari was already waist-deep in a biological crisis. She hovered over her terminal, eyes wide. "Commander, do you know what they give their young as a reward?" Velix sighed. "More ethanol?" "No, chocolate. It contains theobromine, neurotoxic to nearly 90% of known galactic fauna, and they give it to children as a snack." Communications Officer Dreel joined them, holding a scan of a popular local food item. "This beverage, they call energy drink, contains enough stimulants to cause cardiac arrest in a mature Trosson, and humans chug it during exercise. Any self-administer poison for performance gains," Velix whispered. No wonder they conquered gravity. Their reverie was interrupted by a low, rumbling purr. "What was that?" Dreel asked. A blur of fur and arrogance strutted through the open airlock before anyone could react. The dome's automatic systems didn't recognize it as a threat, probably because no one had considered programming security protocols against small, adorable apex predators. It was Mittens, again. The feline leapt gracefully onto the data console, stared directly into Velix's soul, and curled into a perfect nap coil. His tail flicked with disdain. "Defense shields," screamed Tharnox. "Don't move," Solari whispered. "It's responding to movement." "You're thinking of carkhounds," Dreel muttered. "Sane energy." Outside the dome, a human knocked politely. "Hey, sorry about that, your door was open and Mittens is an escape artist," I'll just... Before anyone could stop her, the human stepped into the dome without a suit, reached across the predator and picked him up like a sack of pillows. Mittens didn't even flinch. The alien team froze in awe. "She's immune to fear," Velix murmured. "She's either a genetic superweapon or this is normal." As the woman left with the cat, she waved casually. "By the way, the bees are back in bloom. Great for pollination?" "Bees?" Solari asked. "What are bees?" The answer came moments later. A buzzing sound grew near the dome's intake vents. Something small landed on Driel's shoulder. His bioalarm pinged. "This thing contains venom," he shouted. "Don't swat it," yelled Velix. "It might retaliate." "It's just pollinating," said the human outside, watching through the dome. "Probably a worker bee. They're harmless unless threatened." Seladi's fingers trembled. "They domesticated venomous flyers for botanical reproduction." A data tech at the console lifted his gaze. "There's more. They cultivate these venomous organisms not just for pollination, but for honey." "Honey," Velix repeated. "A glucose-heavy secretion produced through partial digestion," Selari added in a monotone. "They eat insect vomit." The room fell into a stunned silence. The bee flew off. Driel collapsed into a chair, defeated. "They've turned a toxic world into a buffet," he muttered. Hours later, an emergency transmission came in from Galactic High Command. Click. Recognition on local hostility and survival estimates. Velix stared at the console. "Tell them," he hesitated, looking out at a pair of humans playing with a dog and sipping coffee. "Tell them we're alive, but we may not survive the normalcy." Selari sighed. "Request psychological support too, preferably with hazard pay." The research dome buzzed with activity, or rather, anxiety disguised as activity. Every alien crew member of the Celestial Vulture was engaged in what could only be described as a scientific identity crisis. Commander Velix Tranor sat in the central chair, still in his dreadsuit. Despite being inside a pressurized clean room, his visor remained sealed, partly due to protocol, mostly due to paranoia. "All preliminary assessments," began Dr. Solari, "have been upended by direct contact with the native species. The biosphere is, frankly, incompatible with galactic norms, but the organisms here, the humans, they are thriving in it." She projected a slide onto the dome's main holo-display. It showed side-by-side biological readouts. One was a typical galactic species, the other a human. "Note the heat tolerance," she said. "They willingly exist in environments that would desiccate most life forms. Then there's pressure resilience, microbial resistance, and emotional volatility. They expose themselves to trauma for amusement, and they recover like engineered constructs." "It's becoming increasingly likely," added Communications Officer Driel, "that humans are either genetically designed super soldiers or artificial biohybrids built to survive extreme conditions." "We asked a local about this," said Chief Engineer Vex, pulling up a recording. "He claimed they simply evolved that way." Everyone in the dome went silent. Then someone coughed. "Clearly a cover story," Solari said at last. The crew had begun to catalogue their findings in a formal xenobiological dossier entitled Terra Probable Cradle of Bioengineered Superorganisms. Tests were carried out voluntarily and to the humans' amusement. They donated blood, allowed scanning, even ran obstacle courses. A human named Miguel jogged around the dome perimeter in sub-zero wind wearing only a t-shirt. "This shouldn't be possible," Velix murmured. "He's not even shivering." When shown medical data, the aliens discovered an arsenal of toxic compounds humans used routinely: caffeine, acetaminophen, ethanol, and something called spicy wings. "They already trade in things our databases classify as level 4 contaminants," said Driel, scrolling through a list. "Their children consume sugar at levels we use to preserve corpses." "But they laugh, they make jokes," Selari added. "They seem happy." which could be a sign of species-wide delusion brought on by environmental overexposure, Velix offered. They watched one of our crewmates trip and nearly die from overexertion, said Litrahalix, and then clapped. Clapped, Commander! Did you analyze that clapping? Yes, it's an expression of approval. They call it applause. It's madness. Yet none of their theories explained the casual resilience, the adaptability, the emotional elasticity, the fact that humans experienced everything from mild trauma to full-contact impact sports with nothing more than ice packs and sarcasm. The final straw came when Dr. Celeri examined Earth's medical protocols. They inject their offspring with controlled pathogens to build immunity. They call it vaccination. Their entire immune system is trained through simulation. They did weaponize disease resistance, Velix said in awe. Miguel stopped by the dome with a tray of fresh-baked cookies. Hey, just checking in, he said, cheerful as ever. How's the analysis going? Want to join a yoga class later? It helps with stress. The alien stared at him. You willingly contort your limbs into biologically inefficient positions for fun. Sure, he said, grinning, and flexibility. He left, humming. Commander Velix rubbed his temples inside his helmet. We are dealing with an organism that redefines survivability, relishes discomfort, and weaponizes optimism. We're not studying them, we're surviving them. News of the Terra Nova encounter spread faster than a solar flare in a dry nebula. Within a single rotation, the galactic communication grid lit up with headlines. Death Cradle hosts hyper-adapted superspecies. Humans, evolutionary apex or engineered nightmare. Top 10 reasons Earth will kill you is chocolate. Within days, the galactic information networks were ablaze. Documentaries were greenlit, think pieces were streamed, analysts speculated. Theories exploded across every frequency. At the center of it all stood the now notorious planet GRX 991, renamed by popular consensus to its native designation, Earth. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 37 species, many of whom had previously dismissed Earth as a blue-green mudball, now required sedation after reading preliminary human medical reports. The Belgari delegate fainted upon learning humans intentionally fermented food before consumption. The Threx ambassador demanded an inquiry into Earth's daily solar radiation exposure. And the Ikari contingent, beings whose exoskeletons required 12 layers of thermal shielding, went into collective panic when told humans sunbathed for pleasure. Military organizations began redrafting entire threat matrices. If humanity had evolved under constant planetary duress, what did that imply about their capacity for war, their tolerance for pain, their emotional endurance? Intelligence agencies across the stars studied human cinema, particularly something called action movies, mistakenly believing they were documentary footage. If their juveniles are trained through karate films, asked one analyst, what else are they hiding? Meanwhile, commerce factions salivated. Humans could survive toxic worlds, high-pressure environments, and temperature extremes. Mining companies envisioned cost-cutting crews of Earthlings extracting rare minerals from places previously deemed unworkable. Requests flooded in. Wanted. Human specialists for void walk repair crews must be comfortable in corrosive gas. Hiring. Earth natives for combat arena survival simulations must sign liability waiver. Seeking genetic samples, compensation includes fame and awkward questions. On Earth, people were both amused and confused. Aliens think we're dangerous because we drink coffee and walk barefoot? Asked one internet personality. Guess they haven't seen us during flu season. Tourism surged. Interstellar guests visited Earth not to study its ecosystems or technology, but to watch humans exist. Entire sightseeing packages were built around mundane activities. Observe a human eating spicy food without crying. Witness emotional resilience in a DMV queue. Behold the ritual of morning caffeine intake. Some entrepreneurial humans even monetized the fascination. For a modest fee, aliens could shake hands with someone who survived college exams or held a tarantula for fun. The Galactic Reconnaissance Authority was in full damage control. Commander Velix Tranor attempted to reframe the mission as a premeditated diplomatic initiative. He gave speeches, attended interviews, and claimed Earth had been marked as a potential ally all along. Unfortunately, footage from the initial landing leaked. The galaxy watched in delight as the GRA's finest fainted upon seeing a house cat. A new award was created in Velix's name, the Tranor Trophy for Tactical Oversight, given annually to those who most gloriously missed the obvious. Despite the humiliation, Velix soldiered on. If nothing else, Earth had forced the galaxy to redefine its understanding of life, resilience, and what it meant to survive. And perhaps, just perhaps, that made it all worth it. Meanwhile, in a coffee shop in Montana, a barista handed a latte to a visiting alien tourist. "Welcome to Earth," she said, smiling. The alien recoiled slightly, taking the cup with 2 hands. "It's hot?" "Yeah," she said, grinning. "That's the point." The tourist sipped. His eyes widened. "It's delicious. Wait till you try the hot sauce." The alien paled. Earth had earned its place in the galaxy, not through conquest, wealth, or power, but by simply being itself. A terrifying, hilarious, and strangely welcoming chaos planet. And the universe would never be the same. Back aboard the Celestial Vulture, now orbiting peacefully over the blue-green planet once designated GRX 991, Commander Velix Tranor sat in quiet contemplation. The vast expanse of Earth spun below, serene and glowing in the void. A death world, they had called it. Now, the galaxy's favorite tourist destination. The ship's crew had returned to their routines, though with noticeably more caution. The science officers triple-checked all environmental data before opening a window shutter. The medical team had revised over 1,000 entries in the Galactic Medical Index, including a new warning: avoid underestimating Terran biology at all costs. Dr. Saleri entered the command chamber, datapad in hand. "Final report is compiled, Commander." "And?" Velix asked, not looking away from the viewport. "We've reclassified Earth as Category X7, Adaptive Hostile Biosphere with High Sentient Resilience. Suggested galactic designation: Terra Inconquerabilis." "Unconquerable Earth," Velix translated. "Fitting." "Also," Saleri added, "we've filed the full xenobiological dossier. The Council has asked us to deliver a lecture at the next Interstellar Life Sciences Summit." Velix winced. "Let me guess, as cautionary examples?" "No," she said with a small smile, "as survivors." Elsewhere on the ship, Communications Officer Driel was attempting to decode the intricacies of Terran humor, starting with something called memes. Chief Engineer Vex had traded half his toolkits for a crate of hot sauce packets, now locked securely in a Level 4 hazard locker, and several junior crew members had begun practicing yoga. Back on Earth, things had hardly changed. A barista made foam art in lattes. A kid wiped dirt off a scraped knee and sprinted toward a swing set. Somewhere in Arizona, a man hiked a desert trail with a bottle of water, sunglasses, and absolutely no clue he was the face of 73 interstellar memes. Aliens continued to arrive in droves, some out of scientific curiosity, others out of morbid fascination. Tour groups booked weeks in advance for a chance to see humans mow lawns, shovel snow, or eat jalapenos without crying. One particularly brave delegation from the Zycran Empire filmed a documentary titled Earth, How Are They Not Extinct? It became the most watched piece of media in galactic history. As Velix gazed down upon the Chaos planet, a small smile cracked his otherwise stoic features. "We came here to document death," he said quietly, "and found life in its most chaotic, improbable, and inspiring form." Dr. Salarié nodded. "They don't just survive the impossible, Commander. They make it look easy." The celestial vulture turned slowly in orbit. Below, humanity continued unbothered, unaware that their quirks, resilience, and coffee habits had reshaped the galactic narrative. For the first time in a long while, Velix didn't feel like an explorer or even a commander. He felt like a student. And Earth was the teacher. The ripple effect of Earth's accidental galactic debut stretched far beyond the orbit of its pale blue surface. What began as a simple planetary scan had transformed into a cultural, scientific, and existential awakening across thousands of star systems. Galactic civilizations that once measured greatness by technological achievement now reconsidered the quiet might of persistence, of adaptability, of smiling through absurdity. An Earth-wild, unpredictable Earth was at the center of it all. Children on distant moons now dressed as Earthlings for Interstellar Cosplay Day. Cafes on luxury cruises served beverages named after Earth's famous concoctions: Espressotron 9000, Atomic Hot Cocoa, Double Spicy Latte of Doom. There was even a line of survival gear inspired by human hiking apparel, durable, colorful, and ironically more practical than most combat suits. Meanwhile, the Intergalactic Zoological Institute declared cats a Tier 7 predator after careful observation of Mitten's behavior. Alien researchers debated whether purring was a threat display or an acoustic camouflage technique. The debate remained unresolved. Earth's memes, those strange, often unintelligible slices of cultural shorthand, spread like wildfire. Galnet forums overflowed with memes captioned, "Humans are space orcs," or "Earth DLC for real life." No one truly understood them, but everyone reposted anyway. Yet, beyond the humor, there was reverence. At the Grand Assembly Hall of Veridon Prime, a new monument was unveiled, a towering sculpture of an Earthling holding a coffee mug in one hand and a cat in the other, looking out at the stars. Its base bore an inscription in a dozen languages. In chaos, strength. In struggle, grace. In coffee, hope. Back on Earth, life continued undisturbed. Governments cautiously acknowledged first contact, but most citizens treated it as just another item on the news feed, between celebrity gossip and weather updates. Humans, after all, had always suspected the universe was watching. A young girl in Nairobi taught a visiting Sanan diplomat how to skip stones. A sushi chef in Osaka explained wasabi to a trembling farm explorer. A dog named Pickles made a Rint warlord cry tears of joy. Commander Velix Trenor eventually retired, quietly and without fanfare. His memoir, Falling Upward, Lessons from a Death World, became a bestseller. In the final chapter he wrote, "Greater than we searched the stars for power, for wisdom, for warning, but we found something more important: perspective. And in doing so, we remembered what it means to simply live." Earth was no longer terra incognita. It was terra invicta, the unconquered, the unexpected, the unforgettable. And for the galaxy, it was just the beginning.